All right, here comes Betty Eadie. She's written a new book called The Ripple Effect, and we're going to talk all about it. Betty Eadie's phenomenal New York Times #1 bestseller of over 10 million copies, that's a lot of books, folks, Embraced by the Light and the Awakening Heart, touched millions of lives who seek release from their fear of death. At 31 years of age, Betty Eadie died in a hospital after surgery, experienced the most profound near-death experience ever. She reveals in her experiences in heaven, including meeting Jesus, the presence of angels, being reunited with departed loved ones, the power of prayer, and more. Embraced by the Light, her first book, is actually one of the all-time bestsellers in the history of books. How's that? Anyway, she knew upon returning that she was to share the experience at the appropriate time, and the message of God's unconditional love would reach around the world. That message went out in 1992 with the publication of Embraced by the Light and was increased and amplified by the Awakening Heart. The message now ripples out to millions who in turn share the power of God's love with others. This is the ripple effect at its finest, creating waves of positive energy that are full of love, going forward into one that love will be experienced by all. And she can tell us about the other side, what lies beyond. Here is Betty Eadie. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Art. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful introduction, and I have really looked forward to this evening with you. There seems to be a tremendous amount of energy in the air tonight. I don't know if you feel it, but I certainly do.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I do. You're going to have to yell at us a little, Betty.
Okay, I will.
Oh, that's good.
Is that better?
Yep, that's much better.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy building on this planet, period, right now. We're in a very strange time, and, you know, people will say, millennium madness, whatever it is, I don't know. But it is strange. I mean, there's absolutely no question about it. Or we're just all being psyched somehow, you know, by the millennium. I can't figure it out, but, I mean, you're right.
Yes, these are different times, and there is this wonderful power that is coming. It's a change, a metamorphosis is about to take place, and the earth is preparing for the cleansing that everyone is talking about. And I suppose that does produce not only feelings of just mere excitement as I feel tonight, which is a powerful energy, a good energy, a positive one, but there's a downside to that, and that is a tremendous amount of fear that all of this is creating as well. So I suppose people are greatly interested in what God might have in store for us, or what is just if they don't believe in God.
Well, the greatest fear that man has is of death.
Right.
I don't think anybody would argue about that. It's its greatest unknown, the greatest fear, and we all want to know or imagine, Betty, that it isn't just lights out, you know, velvet black and all over. We want to know, somehow we want to know that, and I guess you can tell us, can't you?
Well, I experienced that, and I had a tremendous amount of fear about dying before I had the experience.
Why did you? What happened to you that brought you to surgery?
I actually went in with it was a minor surgery, really. I mean, it was a common one. It's a partial hysterectomy.
Okay.
And so there was no fear. I was 31 years old, very healthy, strong. And so I went in, had the surgery. The surgery went fine. I hemorrhaged during the surgery. They repaired that. But it was later that evening, after 9:30, that I hemorrhaged again, and this time I died.
Were you in the hospital? In other words, you were an inpatient?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you were actually in the hospital, and the hemorrhage began, and this time you lost enough blood, I guess, that, vital signs stopped?
According to the doctor, when you lose the amount of blood that I lost, your heart fibrillates.
Yes.
And then just stops beating.
It's kind of like a pump without anything to pump.
Exactly. And this was part of the sensation that I felt when I was experiencing my death. I felt my heart fibrillating. There was this tremendous movement in my chest, and then it stilled. And at that moment, there was a sound, a popping sound, just a pop. And I then felt myself shooting up, and I turned and I looked down. I was at the ceiling level in the hospital room. I looked down, and I could see my body lying on the bed. This was very surprising to me, because at this point, this was in 1973, I had not heard of near-death experiences. I had never read anything about it. I didn't even believe in this. My belief was at that time that when you died, you are merely buried in the grave and you stayed there until Resurrection Day. At that time, you would come up. You would either go to heaven or you would go to hell. And I expected that. But what I didn't expect was to look down and see my body laying there. And I knew that I was dead. I had worked as an LPN in the hospitals before. I know the look of death. And I wanted to see my body, and I came down closer. I saw my body actually in a multi-dimensional form, which was very interesting because I wasn't looking through my earthly eyes, but I was seeing through spiritual eyes.
Did you have the same kind of, as you and I speak now on the radio, our two consciousnesses are interacting.
Right.
Did you have the same kind of awareness or consciousness?
Absolutely.
You did.
There was not even one moment of lost consciousness.
Were you, at that point when you were out of your body, scared? Were you apprehensive? Were you elated? Were you curious? What emotions?
I think at first I was maybe just a little bit frightened because as I turned and looked down at the bed, I could see my body. I didn't know that the body was mine at first, which when I came down closer, then I could see that it was me, which was interesting to me because I'm used to looking at myself in the mirror.
Sure.
But as I looked down and saw my body, I didn't recognize it. When I did see that this body was mine, then my first thoughts were for my family. I worried about them. And I thought, the first thought was actually, oh my God, I'm dead. And nobody is here to know that because there was not a nurse, not a doctor. I was alone, and then I thought of my family.
So in other words, you hadn't even been able to punch the nurse's station button or anything?
No, I couldn't. I was too weak. When I awakened and felt this weakness, it was during that time that I had already hemorrhaged to a certain point to where I couldn't even move.
Gotcha.
And then at that point, my heart fibrillated, and I died. What happened to me after that, because I wanted to see my family, I was able to go there. But first I was greeted by three beings that appeared to me. They reminded me of what I would probably think of as monks, in that they had soft brown robes on. They had belts around their waist. But I knew that they were not physical beings.
All right, let me take you back again. You were above your own body.
Yes.
And how did the transition occur from where you were to suddenly being in this whole new place that you're now beginning to describe? Was it just sort of a fade out and fade in, or were you just suddenly somewhere else, or what?
You mean coming out of my body?
Well, yeah, you came out of your body,
I came out of my body from what I would say would be my chest. Some people describe when they've had their near-death experience coming out at the forehead or various places, but I actually felt myself coming out of my body from my chest.
Okay, and you rose and you saw your own body, but
yes.
But then you moved to another realm.
Yes.
Now, how did that transition occur?
At first, before I went on from that into another realm, I actually traveled through space here on Earth to my home. because I wanted to visit my family. I wanted to see them one last time.
So what you wanted to do is what happened?
Exactly. I had this strong desire of love for them, and I wanted to be with them.
And so it happened. There you were.
And then I went, actually, as I thought it, I looked around the room, and I looked for a place to exit, which is another curious thought, because wouldn't you naturally exit through the door?
Right.
But my spirit just looked for a place to exit, and I went through the window, because the windows do not open. They're solid windows in the upper floors of a hospital. They do not open.
Right.
And I went through the window, and it was so natural to me. As more time elapsed, everything became more natural to me, being out of the body than actually having experienced the body. As I traveled through the over the city, I could actually see below me the trees, and I went right out into my home, right through the walls, into my living room, where I saw my husband sitting in the chair. He was reading the newspaper. My children, I looked at the clock. It was 9:45. The children were running up and down the stairs. I remember thinking that my husband had promised to put the children to bed at 8:30. And here it was, 9:45, and he wasn't paying any attention to them, and they were just having a good time on the stairs, throwing pillows at each other. And I was annoyed. I was annoyed at him. So even as I think back on it now, even as a spiritual being, I had feelings, I had emotions, I had thoughts
right.
of the things here on the earth. But as I looked at my husband, as much as I love him, as much as I love my children, I didn't want contact with them. I didn't feel that I needed it. And then as I stood there watching them, I began to know, and I'm put the know in quotes because it's more of something deep within the spirit, the soul, that I had existed on earth at a time for them that was needed, and now they no longer needed me, and it was okay for me to go on.
This was something you just understood.
I understood, and so I left.
One more question on behalf of everybody who wants to know these things.
Mm-hmm.
As a spirit, Betty, when did you had sight? You said you could see your husband, you could see your children.
Mm-hmm.
And what of yourself? I mean, what of yourself?
At that time, I knew that I was whole, but I wasn't interested in myself. I felt that I had all of my body parts. I didn't look at myself until much later. When I went back to the hospital, and then I was drawn into this by this energy, into what then appeared to be like a tunnel. And I was drawn into this dark space. It was totally black. Now, before I had my experience, I was claustrophobic and very frightened of darkness. I was raised in boarding schools, Indian boarding schools, and that had taught me a lot of fear. Mm-hmm. So under normal conditions, if I were in something dark, I would have absolutely panicked. But in this place, it was so filled with love, so nurturing and so beautiful that I actually felt that I would prefer this place to any other place that I had ever experienced. And then I saw a pinpoint of light that pierced this blackness, and then I wanted to go to that light. Mm-hmm. It was my heart's desire to go to the light, and at that point, I swirled and began to travel towards that light, going feet first. This is when I noticed that I had a spiritual body.
I see.
Because I could see then that I had feet, and they were out in front of me, but they were of a different kind. I could describe it best by saying that it looked like spun light.
Some people have breech births. It sounded like you had a breech death.
I think so.
Feet first, huh?
I think so. I think it also probably has something to do with personality, because when I want to go somewhere, I want to go direct, and I do go feet first. So, I don't know.
Most people would be incredibly frightened of, if they were aware they were dead, which
Yes.
you obviously were, to go to an area where there was nothing at first but blackness.
Right, I would have been. I mean, I know, had I not had this experience, Art, I would have, it would be something more frightening to me than anything I could imagine. It was frightening to me. After having had this experience, death absolutely does not frighten me. There is nothing on this earth that I am afraid of, because the worst thing that can happen to you is that you would die. And so it removes your fear. And then having gone beyond that, even beyond the death, beyond the darkness, beyond the this place where spirits seem to be in this black space, and I knew that every one of these spirits were being nurtured and being loved by God.
So you could feel others about you but not see them as such?
Exactly. Now, normally, that would have really panicked me.
You bet.
Yes.
But not, I guess, if you were sort of given a feeling of complete love, why you'd be comforted by that, I suppose.
Yes, so it was the love that held me there, and it was the love that comforted me, and it was the most beautiful place that I had ever been. It was the most wonderful that I had ever felt. I cannot overemphasize the beauty of that darkness.
No pain, no physical sensations.
Nothing. It was just beautiful. It was as though my body, my spiritual self was going through a healing, a transformation, because everything of the earth dissolved away from me, and I was just filled with this tremendous love, like just being held. If you feel the comfort of your father's arms or whatever was your security, if you could just imagine that is that comfort that you feel, and then just intensify that by 1,000 times. I mean, it was so beautiful. But the beauty was yet to be experienced, and that was the beauty of following the light. After that light pierced this darkness.
Which began as like a pinpoint of light.
A pinpoint, just a speck of light, enough to attract my attention. And I knew, Art, that anyone in this dark space with me, any one of us, if we saw that light and we so desired it, we could all turn and go towards that light. But I also knew that there would be spiritual beings who would not be prepared to go there. They would not release what they had here in this comfort and in this beauty, that they would not follow that light. But I wanted to.
Do you think, Betty, this is an interesting question, that some who had been mortal and were there in your condition, sort of in the black waiting room, if you want to think of it that way, do you think some of them did not go to the light, Betty?
I think that some of them did not go to the light because they did not trust or believe in it. This may come from the person's belief system. I too experienced a life review. It was sometime later in my experience, but I had to experience and see for myself and feel for myself all of the pain that I had created while I was here on Earth. It was not a very happy experience for me, but I was also allowed to experience all of the good that I had produced, that I had created. And although there was very little of that.
Well, I was going to ask, was it like a short subject, the good part, and a long feature film, the bad part?
Well, for me, that's exactly what it was, because I had during my early life, developed quite an attitude, and the attitude was negative. And I was just basically giving out to the world what I had been taught, and it wasn't good. I had to experience that and see that I had indeed hurt people and that I needed to change my life. But I also witnessed some of the good things that I had done, and I was amazed to find that most of the good was actually very simple things that I did without thinking. Sometimes we go out and we do good deeds because we feel that, well, we have to, like maybe given to a charity because, well, our foundation or organization has to, or those are not considered great acts of kindness. What was considered great acts of kindness on my part was actually just very simple little smiles, pleasant thoughts that I had about other people, things that I would never have considered as a great deed here on earth, but just simply something that I felt for someone else, a love. And when I experienced that, then I knew that it wasn't in me to be the loving person that I could have been. I also noticed when we were talking earlier about my spiritual body, and I noticed how dim my body was, the light from my body, that just the simple glow from that. Often when I'm out on speaking engagements, I tell people trying to describe this that it would be compared to the greater light. It was like 7 watts of light compared to thousands and thousands of watts, if you can imagine it.
I can.
Yeah, and the light is the love. And this is what distinguishes the great ones on the other side in heaven. I'm calling it heaven not because that name was given me, but because we think of heaven as being a beautiful place, and so most people can connect with that thought. So in heaven, these glorious beings of tremendous light are that way because of the love that is within them. And this is what God is. God is love. And so that love flowed from them. It is who they are. And my little 7 watts of light was so humiliating, and I was very embarrassed. I was a very judgmental person, and I was shown that life here on earth, this earth, is not as we think it to be. That, in fact, the heavens scrolled back is the best way I can describe it, and they said, "Betty, look down. We want to show you something." And they showed me a man, a drunken bum, I call him, that was laying on the street. And they said, "What do you see?" And I said in that judgmental attitude or tone, "Why, just a drunken old bum." And they said, we want to show you what this man looks like in spirit. And so they took this man's spirit and they stood it before me, and I was so embarrassed. I will never forget that humiliation. And they said, this man, because he glowed with this tremendous light, they said he gave his entire life on earth to one other soul. He is going to lay on that street until this man passes him, and when their eyes connect, that spiritual passage, that love is going to be felt, and that love is going to change the entire world of this other man. They told me he was an attorney. And because that man changed...
Really?
Yes.
I didn't think that many of them made it.
Well, they showed me one.
Sorry, I couldn't
This attorney, because he would make this spiritual connection with this drunken man, and they were soul friends before this earth. And because of that connection, this attorney was going to do some tremendous work on the earth. And after that exchange was made, then that drunken bum could come home.
Oh, boy, I'll tell you.
It's a big one.
If that is what it's all about.
Yes.
If it's about love and the amount of love.
That's all it is.
Well, there's a lot of people out there in trouble. And,
yes.
Of course, I guess somehow the comforting part might be that we don't all have to be perfect. None of us are,
no.
In order to make it. But you got to kind of wonder where you are in the scale of things.
Well, we are all here. There's a saying that we are all spiritual beings here on earth to have an earthly experience.
Right.
And that is absolutely true, because as spiritual beings, before we came here, we wanted this experience to be here. Each and every one of us, and I was told this while I was there, that each and every one of us were handpicked, selected by God to experience earth. and we were going to take with us the love that we had already developed, that was within us, and we were going to express it. We were going to use that to create with it. We were going to explore it. And he knew that we would make mistakes. We knew we would make mistakes, but that we would all return back to him. Now, this totally goes against what I had been taught as a child in my religious structure.
Do you think there's a hell?
No, not as we understand it. There is hell in that hell is the opposite of heaven, and it is expressed that way in the Bible because it shows us one of the worst things that could happen to us, just as we think the worst thing that could happen to us is death. And there is no death. But hell, as I understood it, is not a place, but it is a state of mind, a state of being. It is what you take with you when you leave this earth, and something that is difficult to be removed from because it is your belief.
You know, about a week ago, a lot of people must have caught it. CNN actually did a little piece that they ran all day long on what hell is and what people think hell is. And most people have the very traditional, hellfire and brimstone, burning up, screaming, screeching hell, concept of hell. And that really is what most people believe.
You know, Art, it amazes me that anyone could believe that that is where God would send anyone. Because first he would send us down to earth, remove from our memory that he even exists, place us in homes that are terribly dysfunctional. We have to go through life, through all of this corruption that is out there, and then go to hell because we didn't understand or know of him?
I know, but then there are some worse than others, and there are some bad people, Betty, in this world. Now, it may not be, I don't think God sends anybody to hell, but maybe in the end they send themselves.
They certainly do, and many of these people, I was shown so many incredible things that I couldn't even write about them in Embraced or any of my books, because I'll tell you, it's been 26 years since I had the experience.
Well, when you fill out a resume to get a job, you can lie a little bit and BS and write down experience you didn't have and that kind of stuff. Yes. I have this feeling that when you get to that point, to the blackness or the white light or near the white light,
that's right, that
you can't cheat on your resume. In other words,
you can't cheat on your resume. And once you've experienced the beauty and the love of God as I experienced it, there is nothing compelling here on this earth that would make you want to lie, because you would not want to jeopardize returning where you came from. Now, there is nothing on this earth that appeals to me. I want to go back, and I want to go back where I was, where God took me. I want to go there, maybe even higher if possible. I want to complete my mission here on this earth. It's been my compelling force, my drive. One of the reasons I am here is because he wants his spiritual children to understand his true nature and not to fear him. I was shown all the devastation, the possibilities of the earth and its change and all of its corruption and how we become corrupted. I was shown all of that. But I was told that the most important thing is not to fear that, because there is no death, and that, yes, you can prepare to live longer on this earth. There's much to do about getting your preparations for all your water and your food, and all of this should be done. But there's a step that's even greater than that, and that is preparing your spirit to meet God. And when you don't have fear of death, nothing is going to harm you, because there is no such thing as death. And this is why he sent me back. I have to tell people about this. I have to let them know that God's true nature is one of love, and not that he is going to separate us and throw us into a fiery pit of hell, but that at any point in our life, we can change what we are doing and redirect our thoughts and our deeds and come closer to Him. And when we do that, we have no need for fear. Spirits are being called by God to awaken to Him now more than ever before. And even before the earth was created, we knew what His plan was. We knew that this would happen. We even counted on it.
Betty, I want to know what you say to all of these neurosurgeons and doctors who have commented on the experience you're now talking about, and they say, oh, listen, it's the brain dying from the outside in. It's a natural process. Death is a natural process and a process unto itself, and that your brain begins to die from the outside in, and people do see that center as they approach it, as the brain cells die, and the brain and the body at this point issue some sort of endorphin or some sort of something or another that is intended to ease the process of death. And so, what do you say to these people?
Yeah, in the early part of Embraced by the Light, when it first went out, I was attacked by many people, including doctors, who made these comments that you are suggesting here.
Yes.
But most doctors now, and I have gone out and I've spoken to groups of doctors, 350, 400 and some odd doctors, nurses.
Yes.
And most doctors who have taken the time to educate themselves on near-death experiences now know that they do happen. It's the doctors that have not furthered their education. But this is what I brought to these 350 doctors. I said, okay, let's say that at the time of my death, that all of this happened, something in the brain is prepared for me to have this experience.
Yes.
Let's say that is true. Now and I'll agree with you if you just listen to the rest of it, is what I told them. Okay, now explain to me then what happened, not only to me, but thousands, millions. I think there's a reported over 8 to 10 million people that have had near-death experiences.
Right.
So I said, explain to me then, what happened when my spirit left my body? I could see clearly in the room. I traveled. I could see clearly. I wasn't foggy. I wasn't blinded. I went into my home. I saw my husband. I saw what my children were doing. Later, I told my husband what one might even say maybe my husband would agree to that and maybe we conjured this up together. In the second book I wrote, in The Awakening Heart, there's a beautiful story that a friend of mine who is a physician who had a near-death experience, he actually died and came back to life 4 days after his death, and he chose to come back during his autopsy because he wanted the physicians that were around his body to see that God could bring you back to life or put you back into your body at any state that he chose. And so this man actually came back after the Y had already been cut, after some of his organs had already been moved, and much to the shock of the doctors that were around his body. All of this is documented, as a matter of fact. And so it's not just my experience, but there are millions of experiencers who share similar stories. And, we're beyond it's much like the conversation you were having earlier about UFOs. We are intelligent beings, and I think that we are beyond the point now of denying what we do not understand, and we should be investigating now.
Oh, boy, do I agree.
Absolutely, because these things do exist. When I was taken into heaven, I was shown that God created many, many worlds, that this earth is not the only place that is inhabited. I certainly do believe that there are people that visit our planet. They're far superior in technology than we are. And when we become more aware of this, when we allow ourselves to come out of our cocoons, then we can broaden our understanding. We can even develop our technology much quicker than it is right now.
Well, Betty, it makes sense to me that with all that is there, and on any clear night, go out and confirm it for yourself. You know, Jodie Foster said, if they're not out there, what a waste of space it would be. I mean, we're just a teeny speck of nothing compared to the rest of what is out there that we're already aware of, and there may be more. So, yeah, sure, there's life out there. If there isn't, it just doesn't make sense. And then if there is life, that it could be advanced and visiting us is reasonable to assume.
That is so true. And for those that believe in God, in the higher power, why would they want to limit him? And especially for those who say that this earth is the prison for the people insane. And
I've thought that on days.
I'm sure that many people have. The fact is as they explained to me, that we are all going through a period of growth, and to experience the different worlds is a part of that. And so, yes, is there reincarnation? Yes, but not in the sense that we think it to be, but rather that we experience our life here on this earth, and there are other worlds that we will experience hereafter. Understanding it and looking at it from that point of view is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Are you saying that, okay, there is reincarnation, but you think it's far less than automatic that you come back to Earth?
Yes. Actually, they explained it to me that reincarnation is not as we think it to be, that many people claim that they are, say Cleopatra, and I know years back I had a psychic who told me that I was Mary, Queen of Scots. I believed that. I believed it with all my heart because I wanted to believe that I had existed before, and not only that, but there was a part of me that actually experienced the smells of being inside of a castle, and the loneliness, and I could feel this woman about me. When I had my experience, and I actually inquired about a reincarnation, and I was told that cells have memories. Every cell on the human body has memories of everything that has ever existed. And so it would be easy for my cells to recall and experience someone like Mary, Queen of Scots. And, just a couple of years back, I remember the First Lady, Clinton's wife. I can't remember her name.
Hillary.
Hillary.
The future senator in New York.
Yes, and she was sitting and having these imaginary visits or something with
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Right. And I understood the process that she was using. And actually, you might say she was sitting down and having a conversation with her own cellular memory, because all of our cells have memories of everything. They just recall. And so where people recall memories of pre-life as this person or that person or the other, it is not that they lived that life. They are just tapping in to what has already existed, even if it is another person's life. This is, our cell memories are passed down genetically.
Well, the evidence for that would be borne out in, I know you know about the lady who had the heart and lungs transplanted onto her from, I believe, an 18-year-old boy or a youngster, and she woke up with cravings for, I think it was beer and pizza. I don't know what it was, what an 18-year-old would want. And then later, and this is what really blew me away, Betty, she dreamed the donor's name.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
That's cellular memory. That has to be cellular memory.
It is cellular memory.
But what does that say, though, about what our composite is? In other words, most scientists would think that our consciousness, everything we are, is in our brains.
Well, we are electrical beings. We are made up of light energy, and we are electrical. Just as you and I are speaking right now, and over the airwaves comes our voice.
Yes.
our voices.
Yes.
This is all electronically produced. It is all sent out there magically. And so is our body. And so, you see, we are more in tune than we think we are.
Well, you know, all of that is true, but for the person with the radio out there, once you and I have said what we have said, it rushes past them. They hear it, but they don't encounter it again, unless we replay it. But, I mean, under normal circumstances, it may continue on into space forever, as radio signals are said to do.
And they do.
But they don't encounter it again, though.
They lose their power, their energy, and it weakens.
Yes.
And so this is why it goes through. But actually, one of the things, again, that I was taught while I was there, and that is that these electrical waves, our voices, yours and mine right now, travel not only to radio, but it actually, the vibrations of our tones that we produce literally enter in to every person on this earth.
A collective.
Yes. And it is through these tones that they caution me that understanding the tones is very important, because we can raise or lower the vibrations of an individual by the tones in our voice.
What is the present state of the collective, Betty?
Right now, the reason why this earth is going through the tremendous change that it is obviously heading towards is a true indicator of where we are collectively. We are in a very low, very negative vibration. This can be raised. All of this does not need to happen. It absolutely can be changed if we change our level of thought, if we change our level of our deeds, because everything that we do is given a value, an energy. You know, we talk about, and I believe in numerology. I believe in astrology. I believe in all of that. Those are tools. It's just misused sometimes by people. But speaking about numerology, today is 9999.
I know.
And so this is kind of a fearful day for many people, because they have looked forward to this day, and some people with trepidation, with a tremendous amount of fear. And this is why I continue out there with my work, Art, because I want to help people overcome fear. I want to raise the vibrations. I want to dispel fear, because fear and guilt are our heaviest energies. Fear, guilt, and of course shame. And that lowers us, that lowers self-worth. Everything goes to the lowest energy. For those that must believe in Satan, and Satan does exist as an energy of negativity.
He does.
But, yes.
And as God exists.
As a positive. That's exactly right.
Oh, now, I really haven't heard too many people who've been been through what you've been through say that. Satan exists as an energy.
Yes.
A negative energy.
He opposes the energy of God.
As God exists as a positive energy.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely. God, although God is a being that I experienced, I mean, I literally saw this man as God. Now, you can interpret that any way that you would feel that you had to. Some people might say, well, I had a belief in God prior to my death, and so therefore I saw him as a being, a male figure, because some people believe, of course, God is female. What I saw was a perfectly balanced being. This being had feminine and masculine qualities about him. And but I knew that Satan was also a being, but that his energy would be that of a negative. And because in order for us to experience Earth and all that we would want to create, we would have to have that energy, just like we have to have up and down and north, south, east, and west.
Yes.
We must have the opposing force just like strengthening a muscle, you must have that opposing force in order to build that muscle. And to have faith, you must have the opposing.
Betty, I've talked to a lot of people on the radio who don't believe in God.
Oh, yes, I know there are.
I mean, they just flat don't believe in God.
Right.
Now, what about those?
You know, I don't blame these people. They were probably raised much like I was. I was afraid of God to the point that I wanted to dismiss him from my life.
Well, what I mean is, at that same moment, without the insights or the luck, I guess, to go and come back, a person arriving at that point of darkness, if that's their arrival location indeed at all, who didn't believe in God at all, I guess you can only speculate, but I mean...
I guess I could speculate on that, only in that I experienced it, and I have heard experiences of thousands of people during these 26 years of having had my experience. And I can tell you stories, and these are some of the stories I share in the Ripple Effect, as a matter of fact. These are stories of people that come from different belief systems, different faiths, that had near-death experiences and actually experienced like what I experienced.
Right.
And so what I would like to see more than anything else, I think, on earth, and that is that people come together and forget about their religious structure, their current religious structure, and start investigating these experiences. Let's find out. Let's compare. Let's weigh and measure these things and find out what people are truly experiencing. I know that everyone comes from their own perception. That's the only place they can come from.
So you're telling me that of those people that you do know of who have an experience like this, who did not believe in God,
right?
Absolutely,
they met him.
They had the same experience.
Yes, they met him. I actually have met and have letters in the book, The Ripple Effect, from Jewish people, Buddhists,
yes,
who wrote me letters and shared their experiences with me, and they met Christ. Now, that was quite a shock to them, because this man was not in their experience. Now, Jesus was a part of my experience, a part of my religious background. It would be natural for me to say, call this being Jesus.
Got you. Of course that would be natural. But of the Buddhists, you're telling me they met Christ, not Buddha. Right.
That's true. And yet many people have met Buddha. But more people, I'm just talking about the letters that I have collected, and people that I have met, more of these people have met Christ. I received a phone call from a woman that was terrified, and she says, "My God, Betty, my mother died, and she saw Jesus." And I said, "What a wonderful thing." I said, "Don't worry about it. I experienced it."
I think there are more Buddhists and others than there are Christians, but anyway, you got to figure at best 50-50. Half the people in the world don't believe in Christ and God as we know them, or so. This has always been something that I have struggled with terribly, Betty, and that is that there are good and bad people of faith and no faith. There are good and bad people of various faiths.
Absolutely.
But what you seem to suggest when you say what you say is that there's only one true path.
No, I don't believe that there is one truth path. As a matter of fact, I was told that there wasn't.
Oh.
So this was what, again, was something that I had to rethink as far as my religious background, which was in my early youth, was Catholicism, and the Protestant, of course. And so it was very difficult for me. This wasn't an easy experience at all. And then to come out with Embraced by the Light, of course, I know that it crosses many paths, many lives that do not believe in God. but I have to share the experience as I experienced it.
That's right.
Yeah, and otherwise I would be lying.
Right.
And so this is why I'm greatly interested in research being done in this area. Great research, not what we're doing now, but I mean unbiased, so that we can get to the root of all of this. But I'm just merely sharing the truths as I see them, and from people that have experienced near-death experiences, even children who have not been taught of God.
Especially children.
They come back talking about Jesus.
I know.
They also come back talking about someone by the name of Elizabeth. I think it's important for us to search these things out and to explain them somehow, or at least I have a great interest in it because I experienced it. But I know that I experienced Jesus, and to say that he is anyone else but Jesus would be a lie.
Gotcha. No, you can only tell us what happened to
no,
you, and I wouldn't want you to tell us anything else.
Exactly. You wouldn't want me to try to make this generic to fit all religions.
Nope. Just what happened to you. Here's somebody who asks a pretty interesting question. It is as follows. You said you went to the best place you'd ever been.
Yes, to that point.
And particularly since you had gone to your husband and your children and you knew that you didn't have to be there anymore. You were comfortable with that.
I was very comfortable with leaving them.
Then the obvious question is, if you loved it so much there, what are you doing back?
I didn't want to come back. I can tell you that.
You didn't want to come back?
Not at all, Art. I did not want to come back here, and I have received a lot of criticism for having written this in Embrace because I told it as I experienced it, and I literally threw myself down in the presence of Jesus and told him that under no circumstances was I going to go back to earth, that I was finished with earth, I was through, and that nothing that he could say or do was going to make me go back.
Wow.
I know that
you were there with an attitude, huh?
I had an attitude. I really did, and I'm being honest about that. I'm not that big of a person, but I'll tell you, when you're raised in Indian boarding schools, you learn how to fight. You come up with your own thoughts, your own mind. And I was not going to be sent back to earth, even if Jesus had told me I had to. And I know, and people say that's blasphemous. I don't care what they call it. That is what I did.
No, all I want is what actually happened, and it's pretty amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. I look back on it, and I'll tell you, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by it because, that was pretty gutsy.
Yeah, that definitely was.
But what was amazing...
It's like having a burning bush go next to you.
Oh, absolutely. I expected the burning bush and the full wrath of God to land upon me, but I'll tell you, I could not come back, not after experiencing that tremendous love. I couldn't. My spirit, my soul just cried out for something else, and I just could not come back.
Well, apparently we don't always get what we want.
No, and what happened next amazed me as well. And that was that Jesus, who I knew to be Jesus, laughed.
Laughed?
Laughed. A very humorous laugh.
Oh, really?
Yes. And he said, let us show you what your mission is. And then after that, if you make the decision. And I knew that nothing he could tell me, nothing he could show me would ever convince me.
All right.
And so I agreed to that. I said, okay, I agree to that.
Okay, take your best shot.
Yes, give it your best shot. And he said, I will show you, but after it is shown to you, he said, it will be removed from your consciousness because you cannot take it back with you. And I agreed to that. Well, I have to say, I do not know what my mission is. But I know that whatever it was, I agreed to do it because
So
I'm
you
here.
did, in fact, forget.
Yes, it was taken from me. It was taken. And I was told, though, that I would be writing a book. Now, you're talking about an Indian woman who never got past the 6th grade. And to write a book, much less to come back with this information and to share it with the world. I mean, after I came back, I went into deep depression. I told my husband about this, and I told him what I was told that I had to do, at least that portion of it. That was not the completed mission, but I knew that this was what I had to do. And I went to school, went back. I started studying. I took classes at the community college. I did whatever I could.
Do you remember reviving? Do you remember going back to your body? Do you remember any of that?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. After they showed me everything in heaven that they wanted me to see,
yes.
Then I was told that I needed to return, and I came back, and I remember entering my body, which was the most horrible thing that ever happened to me. It was my body was stiff. It was cold. It was clay-like. It was thick. In Embraced by the Light, I said it was like crawling into some dirty coveralls, muddy, dirty coveralls. My spirit was absolutely repelled by the body. I felt free before, as a spirit I was free. I felt loved. I felt joy. I felt everything that was wonderful. And then to come back into this body was horrid.
Well, then here's a good straight-on question for you. When I heard you when you began the interview, I had the sense that you almost wish you could die.
I have really resisted that thought because I know that it goes against God's will.
But I'm asking you to be bluntly honest, and that's what I heard in your voice.
Okay, you want me to be bluntly honest with you, Art?
That's right.
I am not afraid of anything, and the reason I do not fear death is because it would be joyous to me should that happen. I have been reluctant to talk about that too much because my family does not like to hear it.
Well, that was going to, of course, be my next question. Your family would be very concerned, I would think, if you expressed that view to them.
Well, they're not just to them. They asked me not to say it when I'm on tour because they said there are freaks out there.
Yeah, there are.
And someone might say, Betty, you want to go back to heaven? All right, I'll send you there.
Yeah, there's always that, I suppose.
Yes,
but I mean, there really is that urge, huh?
There's not an urge to take my life.
No.
Because to me, that's throwing God's gift back in His face.
That's something we should probably talk about separately. But I mean, assuming that God said, would you want to come home right now? I would say yes, because I made them promise. I made Jesus promise that the moment my mission is complete, that I would come back home to Him. And He promised me. Now, I believe in God because I saw Him. And I know that God would never lie. There's nothing but truth in Him. And so the minute my mission is complete, or the minute that any one of our missions are complete, because each one of us, when we were in heaven, or back home, I like to refer to it as, when we were back home with Him, we came here because He chose us to, and because we agreed to, we wanted to, and we each came with a purpose in mind. For example, an infant's mission,
yes,
who was thrown into a Dipsy dumpster and found dead inside a trash can.
Right.
That infant's mission could be that.
Exactly. And I know that goes against any normal thought that we could possibly or would possibly have. But you see, every action, every deed, everything that is permitted and allowed by God is for our growth, rather whether it is individual growth or collectively as a society. When we see this horror happening, then it is up to each one of us to make a change. And this is why we vote for the right people. This is why we set standards. We are all responsible for every corruptible thing here on this earth.
Well, Betty, that bears a little conversation. If you look around us now, our social behavior, our wars, our killing, by the way, usually in the name of God or some God.
Yes.
Our environmental degradation, what we're doing to the planet, and the course we're on right now, while I understand that it's a good thing, preach love, because I, too, believe that's what it's all about. I really do.
It is.
A pragmatic assessment of our present circumstances would not lead me to believe that good things lie directly ahead.
Right. You're absolutely right on. That's how it is. And but I'll tell you, I was shown something else, Art, that encourages me. And that is that at this moment of time, right now, we are in this stage of awakening. God has already called many people to come forward in this crusade, if you will. As though these people are warring angels upon this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these people that are warring angels are not men, but they are women. And he told me that these women are women of wisdom. They're not coming forward in a movement of women as has been done in the past. But these are women that are going to step forward and say, no more. This will not happen to my children anymore. I want the laws to be changed. I don't know how involved you are with what's going on with the young people these days, but I have grandchildren and children who are afraid to correct, much less punish them for their deeds. These are kids that are becoming very undisciplined.
Oh, yes.
And not only in their thought, but in their behavior. It's very embarrassing to be out and to see people with their children misbehaving, and those children or parents begin to panic because the law can literally take their children away from them and punish them, throw them in jail if they even correct that child with a SWAT.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we have torn apart our families have become torn apart.
Well, that's what I meant by our social behavior.
Yes, it has declined. There is this chance, because I was shown it. I literally saw it, that we can make a change and that this change is about to happen. And I'll tell you, we can do this through the power of our prayer, prayers were also shown to me as being the most powerful spoken words upon this earth. Everything that we speak with our mouth, we create. Everything, even our curse words. Illnesses are produced by the words that we use. Mm-hmm. We can change the energy on this planet by watching our words and by using positive things, words and emotions and doing deeds. This can happen. It doesn't have to end the way I see that it could also go if we do not make these changes.
What were the possibilities you were shown?
Well, of course, you're not going to hear too much new from me. I think just about everyone speaks of this, and that is the tremendous weather changes. That was shown to me. The earthquakes. In fact, I live in an area. I actually saw all that could happen in this ring of fire that we have with the volcanic eruptions that are all not only possibilities, but of course they are predicted to happen. I saw the mountains, and that the mountains, tall mountains, literally laid down and became one with the valleys. And of course, when the mountains lay down, other parts of the earth have to raise up. Mm-hmm. And so no one, people can say that they want to go to this state or that state to get away from anything, all the disasters. It's an impossibility, because where something happens on one side of the world, something else is going to happen on another side.
Earth changes, and there would be no escape.
There is no escape from it. But except for that we can make a difference in changing this world by literally changing our minds about it. Mm-hmm. But there will be, and I was shown massive panic. I was shown darkness. that would come upon the earth. All the things that you have heard probably for eons about the earth, I was shown that was a possibility. We have produced this negativity. It's a negative energy, and it's brought to the point of destruction, total destruction.
Betty, I interviewed some Hopi elders.
Oh, yes.
And what they told me was that, number one, they had no interest in coming on the air, really didn't want to come on the air, but came on the air because what they knew was coming, they said, has now begun.
Yes,
it's already begun. In other words, this is not something we're forecasting. We're here tonight, they said, to tell you it has begun.
We're here.
Now, even they did not say it could not be stopped or altered or mitigated in some way, but they said it's upon us now.
Right.
That was the message. There's no more time. It's now.
Right.
And
I was shown that, too. I actually was. And except for that, we can make a change, and I was shown that. That God does not destroy what he has created and thought was good, which was the earth. He created it, and he called it good. He will cleanse it, purify it. That will happen.
Same word they used, actually, purification.
Yeah. Oh, is that right?
Yeah, purify.
Okay, they will purify it. It has to go through the cleansing. It has to go through the purification. And that is going to happen. That purification and cleansing can come in two ways. Number one, it can come by the fire and destruction of the volcanoes. It can come by the cleansing of the floods. It can come by the purification of the blowing winds. It can come in all of those ways. Or it can come by our change of attitude and if we raise our vibrations. And this can all happen through the power of prayer. And because prayer, again, going back to the spoken word being the most powerful thing on this earth, besides love.
Is the power of prayer, in your opinion, an actual response from God, or an effect on the collective itself?
The power of prayer is actually something that, in the Bible it says, go into your closets to pray.
Yes.
And some people have literally thought, and I've taken polls on this during my speaking engagement.
Betty, whether she believes that having an abortion is, as she puts it, throwing God's gift back in his face. And the same question would apply, of course, to suicide. You mentioned that with respect to suicide or taking your own life, that it would be throwing God's gift back in his face.
Absolutely. Both are. And I am, I'm often asked if I'm pro-abortion, and I have to say I'm pro-education, because I believe that most women, in fact, I believe all women, educated not only to the physicalness, I suppose, of removing that fetus from them, what happens to the fetus, and also to their body, but also educating them to the spiritual aspects of things. They certainly would not, knowing what was right, they certainly would not choose to abort. There are spiritual beings that are literally waiting to be born. These spirits are spirits that we are personally connected to. I don't know if you have children or grandchildren. I don't even know your age, Art. It doesn't matter.
I'm old.
Oh, you're old, huh? You're like the majority of the people here on Earth, including myself, huh?
Yeah, I'm 54. Actually.
Okay, 54. That's young. And you have then grandchildren that are preparing to come to Earth. These are spirits that you have known forever. I mean, this is not just spirits that are attached to you because they've watched you on this earth and they're drawn to you. These are spiritual beings that you've known when you were back in heaven or back home.
But here's the problem, Betty. If you remember earlier, I said to you, well, what about the child found dead in the dumpster?
Yes.
And we said, well, that was that child's
mission.
Yeah. So then
that child would know, because, see, God knows. We are all given a time here on this earth, a certain time to live. And that time was agreed upon. And sometimes that time is lengthened according to our desires.
Or very shortened. Now,
or they're shortened.
But in the case of the aborted fetus, if that was the mission of the child, how can the negative karma, lack of a better word,
right,
be given to the mother over this? Or how can the mother be made to suffer, or in some way has sinned terribly by doing something that was almost preordained?
Right. I don't think that was preordained. I think it was a matter of a choice was given to her, and she made a choice. And many of us make choices, and we make wrong choices. And abortion is covered very well in the ripple effect, because the ripple effect is about our lives and our deeds and how they ripple out to affect us and to affect the world.
Sure.
And abortion is one of those. And many of the letters I receive are from women that have aborted children. Mm-hmm. What I was shown on the other side was that these spiritual beings that are connected to us, that choose to come to us as children or as grandchildren, they seek that life. And when we do abort, we do throw that gift back into God's face. But for those mothers who have aborted children, I want them to know that I also know that that bonded spiritual being will remain with you and could come back to you through as another child, or perhaps if you cannot have any more children after that abortion, perhaps as a grandchild. So God does not completely sever us from our loved ones. But when you are on the other side and you see the results, you see the perfect plan, and then you see how through your free will, your choice, how you actually aborted or changed that free or that perfect plan, it's very devastating to your soul. And this is where the churches, when they talk about repentance, this is very true. We can be forgiven simply by changing our mind and not doing it again, and asking for forgiveness, and then more important than anything else, and that is to forgive yourself. Forgiving yourself is the hardest thing that there is to do. And when you cannot forgive yourself for something, you are absolutely not going to forgive another person for their deed. And that becomes that makes you a very judgmental person. There are universal laws that govern all of that.
Betty, has there been any study of people who have attempted suicide and come as close to permanent death as you did, let us say?
There are many people who have. In fact, after Embrace came out, I received a letter from a woman that actually had committed suicide.
Right.
And she had an experience, and I encouraged her to write her book, and her book was Beyond the Darkness by Angie Finnemore.
I'll be darned. And what was the premise? What happened to her, roughly?
She attempted suicide, and she was sent back, and of course told not. She was shown hell. Now, again, hell is almost like a metaphor. It's she was taken there and shown that this was something she would not want to do.
Why is it any more metaphoric than the heaven that we talk about?
And you know what? I'm not even saying that isn't even a possibility, because all I know is what I experienced, and I shared it as perfectly as I can, and I know Angie did too. And there's a Sandy Rogers who wrote a book. I can't recall her book, but she attempted suicide 9 times. On the 9th time, which sounds kind of strange because we always hear about the cat having 9 lives, but this did happen to her. They tired of her doing this, and they told her, they said, Sandy, if you continue to do this, if you attempt this one more time, we're going to let you stay this time. Because there is nothing more hellish to the individual soul, to the spirit, than to, again, going back and using that same old phrase, throwing life back at God. Mm-hmm. You punish yourself with all of this, the hell, fire, brimstone, because you knew that as a spiritual being before you came here, that the greatest gift that God offers any one of us is life, right here on earth. This is our greatest gift here. And by taking this life and creating the greatest love that we can, and by expressing this love to others and experiencing it within ourselves and for ourselves, that's His gift. And anything that we do outside of that has a cause and effect, and that cause and effect can be very negative, and that negativity can hurt the soul very much.
All right. A lot of people want to talk to you, Betty, so
Good.
Let's go to the phones. Your new book,
The Ripple Effect.
The Ripple Effect, is available, I take it, in stores nationwide?
The Ripple Effect actually will not be out until the 27th of this month.
Oh.
But if people wanted to pre-order it, they could go to their favorite bookstore, or they could pre-order on my website at embracebythelight.com.
I believe I'm sure we've got a link up. If we don't, we will momentarily, embracedbythelight.com.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Let's see what's out there. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Betty Eadie. Hello.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm calling from California.
Hello, Bob. You're on the road somewhere, huh?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
You have another great show, Art. Thanks a lot.
You bet.
I had a question for Betty. You said you went to heaven and you were shown certain things. Were there certain things in heaven you were not shown?
Oh, I am absolutely sure of it. As a matter of fact, I was told that much of what I was shown would have to be removed from my memory because they did not want that to be revealed yet.
Uh-huh. And another quick question. If you say we get reincarnated and sometimes go back to other planets or other places, why are you in such a big hurry to leave?
Well, Earth for me has not been the most joyous thing up to that point at the age of 31. And I was back in the presence of God, and I loved the love that I felt. It was very devastating to my spirit when I came back. It took me 6 years to overcome deep depression.
All right.
From that separation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Betty, well, the last time you were on, had I talked to you about a young lady named Sarah?
I don't think so.
Okay. I did a really compelling interview with a young lady named Sarah. Sarah had an NDE. Actually, Sarah, get this, Betty, was a church volunteer. She was on her way home from church, riding a bicycle. And she was hit by a car and thrown 60 feet into the air and just about ruptured every organ and bone in her body. She's still, as a matter of fact, recovering now. It's years later. And she had a complete cessation of all vital signs for quite a period of time, an amazing period of time. And she went on to tell this incredible story about going to a place with many sights to see. Among them was hell. She saw hell in what she described as a room. She saw a white light, and she was for a period of time with the white light. But this young lady saw hell. She was specifically and first shown hell. And, I mean, here's a young lady, a church volunteer and all the rest of that sort of thing, and she went to hell and she didn't understand it at all.
Mm-hmm. And many people have experienced hell. They describe it in vivid detail.
Yes, she did.
Right, and so to say that hell absolutely does not exist, it does exist in the minds of many people. I can only, again, go by my experience, and hell to me would be the absence of God. Anything short of that is hell. Anything short of God is hell, once you are there with Him. when I asked him about this, what he said to me was, this was just before I returned back to Earth, the most important thing to do on Earth is to love. And go back and love. Teach love. Because above all else, you are to love one another. And if you do that, everything else is going to be fine. And that was his answer to me about hell.
Why do you think people like yourself are given an opportunity that the rest of us may not get, or most of us will not get? In other words, we don't clinically die. We don't begin the process of death and going wherever it is one goes, as you have described. The majority of us live our life, have a stroke or a heart attack or whatever awaits, and we just die once, and that's it, and we're gone, and we don't come back to tell stories or anything else.
It took me many years with asking myself that same question, why me? I didn't know for sure if it was a punishment or if it was a blessing, because often I feel cursed by having had the experience because it changed my entire life. It almost ruined my marriage. There are many things about this experience that a person just simply cannot understand how.
Yeah, I really meant to ask you about that.
Yes,
your marriage, your husband.
Oh yes, I was not the same woman that came back, and this was very difficult in my life, and it still is in many aspects, because I'm driven with this knowledge. I'm driven to teach it, and this is what I live. I get up and I live, breathe, and eat this. People that have this experience feel the same as I do.
I know.
And I understood later that actually this is something, I would like to say we were chosen, we are special, but I actually learned that it has nothing to do with being chosen. We volunteered for this.
All right, Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Betty Eadie. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Hi. Where are you?
I'm Jessica from La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Okay, Jessica, you're going to have to yell at us a little bit. You're not too loud.
How's this?
That's much better.
I can get loud.
Good.
And you are not old, my dear. I'm going on 52 and I'm trailing right behind you. It's all a state of mind. But anyway, nice to meet you, Miss Eadie. 2 questions, and Art, please don't click me off because my Beijing should arrive tomorrow.
All right.
Okay. First question is, I know in my soul that I believe in God, but I get so angry that actually I'm agnostic at this point. I do believe in reincarnation, or I think I do. However, it says in the Bible, you said you went to heaven or whatever place. It says in the Bible, the dead know nothing of the living. Like a lot of psychics say, oh, your grandfather's standing behind you, your mother. And the dead know nothing of the living. The second thing is, if this is so, that we go to another realm and reincarnate and come back, why is it that Jesus said when he returns to planet Earth for after Armageddon for the 1,000 years of peace, there will be the first, second resurrections of the dead?
I really have to say I don't understand a lot of that. I mean, I was raised in Catholic boarding schools and Protestant boarding schools, and
right.
And the Bible absolutely was something that I woke up to in the morning to and went to bed with.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's tackle her first question, all right? And that is that the dead know nothing of the living. And that is very interesting. In other words, once you have passed all the barriers...
Mm-hmm. I think that, my first thought on that is the dead know nothing of the living. There's another scripture that said, let the dead bury the dead. I think that what that is referring to is there are some people that just simply live life. They go out and they know how to live this life in its abundance and joyously. There are others that live upon this earth and they are dead in spirit. And I think that this is what this is referring to because of the other scripture that says, let the dead bury the dead. Now, how can that be possible that a dead person can bury another dead one?
Right.
So,
only I guess by doing it spiritually.
Right. I think this is what that's referring to, and that is the spiritual dead, and there are many of those up on this earth. And then to the next question, which, and I hope I haven't gotten too far off. Art, you might want to guide me back to that.
I wasn't sure that you said you didn't fully understand the second question. I didn't really either. And that's why I came back to the first one.
Okay.
Of the dead knowing nothing of the living.
Right.
I wanted to circle back for a second to prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were talking about that, and I think we ran into the hour or something, but I have been trying to discern desperately in my own mind, Betty, whether prayer, and I've seen it work. Boy, have I seen it work, Betty. You have no idea. Whether it is an effect on the collective itself and a power unto itself, or whether prayer is actually heard and acted upon by our Creator, by God. I really don't know the answer to that one. I know it works. I don't know why.
I was shown prayer, which was so powerful that I will never lose that image in my mind, ever. It is actually both of what you just said. It is collective, the power from within, because we all have God within us, and it is God Himself. And when we desire something from the depths of our heart, through love, within the power of love, we have this energy that is just unstoppable. It is so powerful, so strong, that it immediately begins to create the desired effect. And so using this power, and God showed me that the greatest power of prayer comes from, because He wanted me to understand the power of prayer, that the greatest power of prayer comes actually from a mother, because the mother's love for the child is so unconditional, so powerful, and so full of strength that her prayers are almost immediately answered. And
I've got to stop you and tell you something. This is maybe way off track, or maybe it's not. This is really something, Betty. You're not going to be familiar with what I'm saying, I'm sure, but I had a remote viewer on my show named Ed Dames, and Ed made a comment about what will initiate contact between man and the others, whoever they are.
Right.
And you know what he said? He said, a mother and a child. He said, that's going to be the key, a mother and a child. And I am familiar with and friends with a man named Bob Bigelow, who's a gazillionaire in Las Vegas, who funds a lot of research, and they've got a ranch that they purchased in a certain place. And they purchased it, this seems off topic, but it'll come together. They bought this ranch because of the anomalous things that were occurring on it. Absolutely incredible, Betty. Cattle mutilations, things that were completely inexplicable that they caught on videotape. It was a scientific inquiry. It's still today going on, so we don't say where the ranch is. But it's administered, I believe, by NIDS, a group called NIDS, and Bob Bigelow finances this. And they had, at this ranch, a mother and child, and they were removed because of a perceived danger to the mother and child with reference to what was going on at that ranch. But then Ed Dames came and said the only contact we're ever going to get, in other words, you could on that ranch, you could take a mother and an infant and put them out in a tent in the middle of that ranch, something you could never legally get away with for the danger. And that would do it. That would bring on contact, that there is no greater love in the world than a mother and a child.
That's right. That's exactly what they showed me when I was in heaven.
Wow.
That there is no greater love. And that the power of that love, in that love, is absolutely, they actually showed me a mother praying for a child. and that they showed the energy coming from that mother, and it was like a huge beacon of light compared to the little specks of light that were coming up around it. And those specks of light were prayers being said. Some of the prayers hardly came up at all. And they explained to me that there was no power in that prayer. In other words, they were probably prayers of selfishness. The prayers were still being heard. They were still being sent because there was some energy in it. But it's the energy of the mother's prayer that is the greatest energy because of the unconditional love. Now, this doesn't eliminate the fathers, because sometimes the father is the nurturer and is the closest to that child.
Oh, I understand.
And so the power of that father's prayer. And this
would not be different, but there is no greater bond.
No greater bond. None. And this is why, going back to abortion, a mother would not want to do this. But we all are in ignorant of most of this, the power, the universal knowledge. We're in ignorance, and God knows this. And this is why He forgives us even before we commit the sin or breaks the law, however you want to look at it. We're forgiven because we're stupid, we're ignorant. But from that mistake, from that era, then we should have some growth. And it's the growth that we have to cling to and not the mistake, because a mistake will just pull us back down into it.
All right. I better get you back to the lines here.
Powerful.
First time caller line, you're on the air with Betty, Eadie, and Art Bell. Good morning.
This is one I'm still holding the line for you.
Well, you're on the air, ma'am.
Okay. I was going to say, before I left home to go play, my mom told me to come back before the sun went down.
This would have been a few years ago, I guess, huh?
It sure was, because I'm 81 now.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I went out there and met this little girl, and we went to play hide and go seek. And we played a long time. And I told her, I says, I'm supposed to go home before the sun goes down. And we both stopped and we looked up into the sky. And when we looked up there to see about the sun, there was the Lord with a lamb in His arms and sheep in front of Him and sheep behind Him. There were more behind Him. And He had a long white gown on down to His feet. And we watched Him till He went out of sight. And when He went out of sight, I looked at her and she looked at me, and she took off for the right and I took for the left, going home. And I went home and told my mother. She was sitting in a rocking chair, and she just turned white. And there wasn't nothing said about it no more from then on. And I never did tell nobody, but I didn't tell nobody except my mother until after I'd got married, and I told my sister-in-law. And then when I went to church and got saved, I told everybody. And I went to every church I could think of and went and told them. And I'm glad that I got into Hugh, because I think everybody in this world needs to know this, because this was in one of the Gospels.
All right, ma'am. Thank you. Do you think, Betty, that people are frequently shown visions like that?
Oh, absolutely. And these visions are going to be, well, you might say that the heavens are going to open in these days, particularly now, and things are going to be revealed that have never been revealed before. This is to encourage people in their faith. And, you know, we spoke earlier about the different faiths, and I was told that it really doesn't matter what faith we come in. You know, we basically are a product of our environment, and we come from different religious beliefs. And, of course, when you're in that, that's the faith that you draw all of your strength from. And so I was told that we simply are not to criticize each other's belief, that to take away even a small portion of their faith is to do damage to them and is not showing love. And so this is why the gentleman asked earlier about why don't I use the Bible. I don't like to use the Bible because to me it's a holy book to many people, and people would be offended if I tried to use the Bible to back any of my experience. Although after having had my experience, I went directly to the Bible because my own belief system, and I had to find what I experienced there, and I did. But it's like looking at a road map. If you're unfamiliar with the road map, you can't find your street. But if you're familiar with that city, you can go and say, oh, this is this street, that's
right,
and
right.
This is what I did with the Bible. I went there and I saw things so much clearer than I had before, and I'm very much familiar with the Bible. So I don't know where I'm going with that.
That's all right.
I don't want to start sounding like a preacher here on Yard.
No, that's all right. You sound any way you want. It's really interesting. I mean, I've interviewed some pretty interesting people. The late Father Malachi Martin was a frequent interviewee on my program, and he was a remarkable man. And we talked of messages given to youngsters like Medjugorje. Others that have been, children are frequently picked, it seems, to receive messages for the rest of the world. And it seems like that's what you were selected to do, that is to bring a message back.
Yes, it opened us a door to individual near-death experiences. Certainly was not the first book written about this subject, but it was one that captured the hearts of millions of people. And I think that it brought about a certain awareness, at least from the thousands and thousands of letters that I receive. I know that it has brought people that never believed in God to believe in Him, or at least to believe in themselves and to live life better, because they know that their actions do create, and they want to create good things and do actions of kindness. Love is the most important thing that we can ever experience on earth.
Indeed.
And we have love so twisted.
I know.
It just amazes me. If I could, and I think anyone that has had an experience like mine, you would want to wave a magic wand and create this love that you have experienced and create it right here on earth so everyone can feel this. It's an impossibility, but to bring people to love, which God is created of, He is love, and to bring people to that it's why I'm living today. I think that if I stopped doing this work, I know my soul would die, because that's all I live for. And you said how has this changed my life, my marriage? It's changed me incredibly so. It has affected my family, my husband, my children. It continues to affect them, because this is all I live for, and that is to continue to take out to the world. And the only real message that I bring to the world anyway is that God is a God of love, and that if you never believe in God, believe in love, and that is going to bring you to God. And the one man said the only pathway to get to God is through Jesus Christ. You have to understand what Jesus Christ is. Jesus Christ actually, through His example as a teacher here on this earth, He opened the door, the gateway to love. He brought back to this earth, you're going to return to the Father, you're going to do that through love, through me.
Well, a lot of people listening to this think, oh, man, mush city. I know how they think of it.
Oh, yeah.
But I've heard it from too many people in the circumstance I described to you a little while ago, and in so many others that I not only do not disregard it, but I agree with it. All right, very quickly, Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Betty Eadie. Hi.
Hi, this is Connie from the San Joaquin Valley.
Connie, you're going to have to yell at us.
I'm sorry, this is Connie from the San Joaquin Valley.
Right.
Betty, I read your book many years ago, and it really did impress me. There was something that you said earlier, though, that we were spirits that came from God, and that we're here to get our spirits ready to go back to meet Him. And I was curious, if we were a spirit with God, why do we have to get our spirit ready again to go back to meet Him once we already knew Him?
I think yes, I probably said something similar to that, and what I mean by that is that we are spirits that came here to develop and by expressing our love for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, as the earth is going through all of its change, the most important thing to me for each one of us to do, if we are not going to make this earthly change, the total change, the energy of the world change by our collective interest in raising our moral standards and all of our other standards as high as we possibly can get them, then we must prepare our souls to meet God, because that is, of course, going to happen. And I would prefer to be spiritually ready to go back home where I originated, where you originated, than I would to spend all of my time preparing physically to die or to remain here on earth. You see what I'm saying?
I think I understand.
Okay, it's more important to me to be ready for spiritually than it is to be ready physically for anything.
You know, Betty, there's a scripture in the Bible and I believe it was Jesus himself that said it, that all spirit goes back to the Father who gave it.
Yes,
a lot of people don't realize that are Christians, but that has always been a scripture that really has made me stop and question a lot of things.
That's right.
Especially about salvation.
That's right. That's given in another place, incidentally, and that is that the Good Shepherd would leave the 99 sheep and go for the one lost sheep. It states very clearly that God, anyone that thinks that God, who is a mighty, powerful being, is going to lose one of his creation to Satan, just simply don't understand who God is.
But again, it circles back to our argument about, not exactly an argument, but a discussion about people who will, in fact, judge themselves. Now, there may not be a Satan as such, or
right.
His operative area may be down here on earth. I don't know. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I know there's evil here.
Yes, there is evil.
So while you may return to the source,
it may take a while. It may take a while for you to...
so many people want to talk to you. I'm getting also a lot of faxes, Betty. Please, for example, ask Betty about the creatures that came alongside her hospital bed after she returned from heaven. Who or what were they, and where did they come from, and what are they used for?
When I came back to my hospital bed after the experience, 5 demons came into the room. I could see them very clearly. And as they were approaching me, a dome of light came down over my entire body, protecting me from them. I can, even as I'm telling you now about this, Art, I can close my eyes and visualize those creatures because they were so frightening looking. And they crawled on this dome of light, scratching, growling, carrying on in a very vicious way. As that was happening to me, the 3 guardian angels that were there with me told me that I was shown this because I needed to know that I would be protected here upon this earth, and that Satan was very angry that I came back and that he had sent these demons to destroy me. But that would not happen. I've reflected on this time and time and time again.
I bet you have.
And I thank God every day that I have this dome of protection, because as I've thought about the experience, as I have tried to glean every ounce of knowledge from it, I can only imagine these demons then as being demons of my own creation, because I know that each one of us, we have things that we allow in our space. We allow things that bring us down, pull us down, that tear at us, beat at us.
Yes.
They are our creation because they don't exist. They are an illusion, actually, because they don't really exist except in our minds. We allow them there. We place them there. And and I thought of this as well, there simply are negative energies upon this earth. And we talk about the bad people, the more than bad people, the absolutely evil people that exist upon this earth.
Oh, yes.
Energy of like energy attracts. And so if you are an evil person, say, and because of the energy, and people, you've probably heard people talk about auras, and some people don't like to hear the word because they tag you as New Age, and so that shuts all the doors of their expanded knowledge. And so I prefer to call it energy field, or you can simply call it, if you don't even like that, call it presence. It doesn't matter. It exists. That energy field around each one of us attracts like energy. And so if you are a loving person, you attract love. If you are a hateful person, you actually attract that energy to you. Evil people attract evil things to them. Mm-hmm. Anything that is done upon this earth that is of an evil nature leaves an energy. This is how we get haunted houses. This is why there are chills that run up and down people's spine when they go by someplace that someone was killed horrendously. That energy is still left there. It is there. It's like a blueprint.
Well, I was going to ask. My question would be: is that some kind of echo of what happened?
Yes.
As opposed to some poor soul actually trapped on Earth? That's always the big question with ghosts.
Yes, it can actually be both, because that energy is there. There are some people who are trapped here only in that they are so locked to the earth that their energy of their earthly self draws them and keeps them here. It kind of goes, you might even say, like people that are dying and they have a room full of loved ones, and the loved ones, because of their love for the person dying, they literally hold them to their mortal self. As soon as the loved ones decide to take a break and go out for dinner or coffee break or whatever they're doing, that loved one dies. And then those coming back have this horrendous guilt because they left the room. And they wonder why that loved one left while they were gone. It's because they were drawn to stay. And this happens. But this other energy is what could is you could attach Satan to, because these can take on this negative energy can take on life form.
All right.
It's very deep.
I've never heard that story before.
Yes, it does. It takes on an energy of its own, and it's usually the energy that people give it.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Betty Eadie. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Am I loud enough for you?
Yes, you are. You're doing
Good.
fine. Where are you?
Heckville, Texas.
Okay.
Hi.
Go right ahead.
Your book is I've only read your first one, but it was so comfortable and clear.
Thank you.
And I appreciated that very much. I haven't been as far as you have. I've been in the tunnel where that wonderful feeling is, that you were describing, the loving.
Oh, yes, all the love.
Okay. I didn't get as far as you did, so I got that far, and then I had to come back, and I'm going, wait a minute. I do not want to come, I really didn't want to come back. And
no, you don't.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do now? It's been a long time since that happened, and I still haven't figured out what I'm supposed to do in the meantime while I'm waiting.
But it's interesting that you know that you're supposed to do something.
Well, I wish I knew what.
Yes.
Really, that's bugging me to death.
And, most people that have this, even the experience that you just had, once you enter that love, you know that there is something, a mission that you are to perform. The interesting part about this is that God doesn't necessarily let us know what it is, because just existing upon this earth and continuing to be guided by the Spirit, if you want to call it that, you will be directed to perform your mission.
Oh, that's a relief.
Yes, and so quit worrying about it. Just live the very best life that you can, and He will direct you right to it.
And how does He want us to talk with Him while we're down here?
Just like you're talking to me.
So much easier up there.
Just like you're talking to me.
Oh, cool.
You don't have to have a formal prayer. It can be just in your heart. Many people have just cried out to God, like, oh, God, help me, in moments of terror, and He has been there. All you need is a desire to have Him by your side and His will to be done, and it will be done.